Hey, how about it, race fans? Richard Allen of motorsportsreport.net coming at you with one of my richest ramblings. And this time it's going to be more NASCAR themed than the usual dirt that I often give on here. This past weekend, my son Austin and I were fortunate enough to cover the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol Motor Speedway. It's quite a show that got put on there. Of course, if you follow racing at all, you've probably heard the issues about the tires and all that. But kind of more on that later. I know that over the past few weeks, a lot of conversation has revolved around the points and how champions ought to be determined, whether the use of a playoff, not the use of a playoff, changing the type of playoff that they use now, or just going to a full season worth of points. You know, that debate's been going on here for a while. And I kind of am going to weigh in on that, but my thought on that is that points are not nearly as big of an issue as something else that's going on in NASCAR. The biggest issue is the car. The car is just not competitive. I mean, yes, it did seem to improve the mile and a half tracks for a while, especially in the newer years of the car when it first came out in 2022, maybe into 2023. But now it almost appears as even if the mile and a half tracks are starting to give back some of that competitiveness that they had before. So I think maybe that had to do with the newness of it and the fact that there for a while the smaller teams were able to keep up because they had essentially the same information, the same knowledge as the bigger teams. And now, of course, the bigger teams have spent more money and they've found more ways to get around it. But the car is it drives too well is its problem. I don't know if it's because of the diffuser. I think it's probably just some sort of combination of factors, but it sticks to the bottom and it ain't coming off when guys are out there racing around and they can run it hard. You never hear, or I'm sure I should say, you rarely ever hear of things like a car running out of brakes. You know, it used to be when they raced at Martinsville, everybody had to take care of the brakes because if they didn't, they'd run out of brakes after just a few laps and other people would be passing them. You really just don't hear that. And of course, you know, you shift the car now where years ago you didn't shift and all that. There's a lot of factors that play into it, which has caused the car to be less competitive than some of its predecessors, with the exception of those mile and a half tracks where it did improve there for a while. But in my opinion, as far as the points are concerned in the championship, I really think if they were putting on better individual races, I don't think people would care about the points. If the races were good from one week to the next, I really don't think it'd be that big of a difference as to how they crown a champion, whether it's through a playoff system or full season or whatever. I think that it's the quality of the racing which points back to the car more than it does the points, which, again, more on that. I'm old enough to have lived through years of full season points, and I can remember people complaining very loudly several years ago, before 2003 anyway, when guys would get out of the car and after the race is over, they finish fifth or seventh or something like that, and they get out and say, well, it's a good points day. We weren't really pushing that hard because we were just trying to make sure we kept our points, and people would complain about that. So, the points are, I go to a race to watch an individual race. I don't necessarily go to count points. So however they want to decide the champions, fine by me. I would, if I had my druthers, I would keep sort of a playoff, but end it with like a 3-race stretch. And in some ways, kind of like the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series is doing with their series. They tried the 1-race championship deal there for 1 year and decided there was some backlash, and they decided that's not the way they wanted to go. So now they've changed it to where there's multiple races after they've picked the 4 guys who are going to race for the championship. But again, as long as everybody's out there giving their best and trying to win, or going all out trying to win a race, it really just doesn't matter that much to me how it goes. Yes, the current system adds some drama with the win in advance that you can have from it, or win to get in. That adds a lot to it. I know, I can remember back in 2003 when they did full season points, and Matt Kenseth had it wrapped up before they even went to the last race. And that year, he only won one race that year. He basically fifth placed his way to a championship, which a lot of people complained about. Well, people are gonna complain either way, no matter what. But kind of back on the Bristol race and getting back to the theme of the car. The tires, of course, there was extreme wear at Bristol, and there's all kinds of theories why. Maybe it had something to do with the temperature, and the concrete really started peeling the rubber off the cars, and instead of laying the rubber down, it was just kicking it up the track, and you had all those marbles up there. Whatever the reason, that was an intriguing race to sit there and watch everybody have to play tire strategy and have to try to conserve. And there was a lot of passing that went on during that race because some guys were using their tires up too much, or whatever the case, or they're doing a better job saving their tires, whatever it might be. And in that case, the car was overcome by the tire wear. And if people want to complain about the tires and how the tires were peeling rubber off and sending it up the track, if they'd come with just a normal hard tire that wouldn't wear, that would have been 500 laps of follow the leader around the bottom of the track. There wouldn't have been any of the intrigue that went on, again, because of the car. The car is not a great short track car. My sons and I went to a race at Martinsville a few years ago, and if I remember correctly, Chase Elliott basically led about the first half of the race, got beat out of the pits on one pit stop by William Byron, and that was it. That was the passing. There were no on-track passes for any position, hardly. And because, they had a hard tire, had a car that's very difficult to pass. It brakes too well. It turns too well. Need to take some of that element out of it, and people will forget about the points if week after week you're having these great races. But I'm no engineer, and I don't know how to do that. I just know what I see, and I know what I have seen over the past years. But nonetheless, those are just my thoughts on points, the car, whatever. In my opinion, it's not the points; it's the car that's causing the bigger trouble. But we were talking; it could be talking quite a lot of money to have to go back to the drawing board on this thing now that we're this far into it. So next Gen 7, whatever you want to call it, it's to me, it's at the root of the problem. And again, like I said, I don't think people would worry too much about the points if they were seeing better races from week to week. If every race was like that Bristol race with all the intrigue and all that was going on and the passing is going on, I think people would forget about the points, really, except, maybe some purists or whatever might not. But anyway, those are my thoughts. You can agree, you can disagree. It's a free country, so whatever you want to think is correct in your mind. So this is Richard Allen of motorsportsreport.net, and I'm saying I will see you at the track.